Hello, my name is Travis Faske, Extension Plant Pathologist for the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. And this presentation today is the last in the series of the rules for fungicides. And so in this last presentation, we're going to talk about fungicide selection. So my title that I've selected is Selecting the Best Fungicides Made Simple. So I'm not going to reintroduce a lot of the terms you've already been introduced to. And so we're just going to get started. So a couple of things about selecting a fungicide that I think are important. Obviously, disease identification would be crucial, right? So here I just have an example of tar spot and southern rust. And in this presentation, I'm going to use corn diseases, but this could apply to any other crop. So efficacy is something we talk about a lot as plant pathologists, and this is just the capacity for producing the desired results. And so the desired results we want is disease control. And we know that there's a length of time for that control, but like with corn, we're trying to protect those critical growth stages. So we just need it there long enough to do that. I picked these two diseases because, for an example of efficacy, things that work for tar spot like the FRAC code threes, the triazoles, do not work so well for southern rust, where the FRAC code 11s work. Let me give you a visual of that. I'm kind of a visual person. So this is a trial that I've had in Arkansas. This is 28 days after treatment. This is the non-treated control, and all of this light colored spots here. This is all southern rust, pretty severe as southern rust goes. This is what the FRAC code 3 fungicide looks like in this trial. And this is what the 11 looks like. Obviously, here that 11 looks much better. I don't have an example for tar spot, but the opposite would be true between these two fungicides. Within the FRAC code 11, too, there's some variation within efficacy for those fungicides. So it's simple just saying FRAC code 11, but then it gets complex with all the other fungicides that are available. So this is the fungicide efficacy table that's on the Crop Protection Network. And there's a lot of different active ingredients and the product names that are here. And I used to think this was more for the consultants and farmers to look at, but because there's so many different fungicides now marketed for use in corn, I use it just to see what's available and what the actives are. And also, I'll have a lot of good southern rust data, but I don't have eye spot or gray leaf spot data. So I look to my counterparts who've based these rankings on the multi-site fungicide trials across the U.S. And then we kind of rank those particular fungicides. And I kind of think of this ranking system like you would use a tool in your toolbox. There's a lot of different tools. If you have a nut you're trying to loosen, there's a lot of different options, like a crescent wrench, which can be helpful. There's also a box end wrench, or my favorite would be a socket set, right? And so each one of those has a use in a particular environment, just like all of these different fungicides. And just like here for southern rust, you have a lot of things that are very good, excellent, or good. It's kind of like those different tools, whether it's a crescent wrench, a box end wrench, or a socket set. And with a lot of these being very good, just like there's a lot of different brands of socket sets that some may prefer, whether that's Snap-on or Craftsman or some of the other better brands that are out there. The fungicides are kind of the same way. They're all comparable. Sometimes it gets to be a little bit of personal preference. Now, these fungicide rankings are not based on personal preference. They're actually based on those fungicide trials. But each one of us provides a ranking based on either statistics or how they performed in our trials. So what's important is like, is that really real? And recently, a validation study was done to analyze those particular rankings, and they analyzed them based on two different levels of disease. And this example is for southern rust. And then the ranking I'm just in the gray bar here is actually greater than 5% disease severity. And you can see that generally, yes, something that's fair is not as good as something that's very good or excellent. So it's following the trend. So it's not just a personal preference. There's some validation to those rankings, and that helps with longevity. The longer we look at these, the easier it is to separate things. And things change over time based on some of the fungicide resistance that is out there. Um, Alternately, you look at the yield response and you see that inverse relationship where something that's excellent is better yield response than something that is fair. So those rankings are valid. All right, so we talked about efficacy with different diseases. Different FRAC codes may be helpful, and now that there's a lot of different combinations of those single site mode of action products, there's reason to look at that efficacy table for selection. Some of the other things we might consider is, if we've used one fungicide product again and again and again, we're targeting something that could develop resistance. Maybe we would change that up over time, and also cost. So those are the basis for fungicide selection. But let's take a look at a couple of scenarios and see how we might apply that. So in this first scenario of three, we have a farmer that is really just dealing with southern rust most of the time, and occasionally maybe northern corn leaf blight. So this is just a map of southern rust from this past year. Usually it's always an annual issue in the South, but this past year it was actually a problem in the Midwest as well. So what might this uh, selection look like? So here's just two fungicides, and I've got them just represented by the FRAC codes here. So 11, which I said, remember that was the best one for southern rust. And then a 3, probably not going to provide a lot of southern rust control, but would be helpful for the northern corn leaf blight. So for NCLB, both of them are very good, hard to choose from that standpoint. For the southern rust, obviously this one's very good. This one's good. This really represents that difference within this FRAC 11. So, you can also look at other fungicides that have this particular FRAC 11, and you'll see probably usually a better response than maybe this one. But simple enough, I would choose fungicide number one. Okay. Another scenario here where we have a farmer that deals with tar spot the majority of the time, and that disease is always in the field, depending on the environment, if it's going to be severe or not. And southern rust is something that comes in. So for these scenarios, we're also looking at one timing. So we're waiting until disease pressure gets to a level where we're going ahead and treat, or we've gotten to a growth stage where we want to protect that growth stage. All right, so here I pulled out again two fungicides, 1 and 2. The first kind of the same as before is 11 and 3, and the other one a three-way grouping here. So for tar spot, which is important, we've got something that's very good here for the second one, and good to very good for the first one. So based on that, there's some variability within this one. It's hard for the scientists to say, hey, it's always very good. It just has a little bit more variability compared to some of the other fungicides that are out there. And this one obviously would be the better choice, number 2. For southern rust, it also looks like it would be the better choice. But remember that other category that was in there may be price. So also on CPN is ROI calculator. And if we look at that for these two fungicides under high disease pressure, so this is greater than that 5%, this first one has a much better return on investment. And so for my choice, that kind of shifts what I was originally thinking, and I would go with fungicide number 1. All right, last scenario here. Again, somebody that's dealing with maybe gray leaf spot, NCLB on a regular basis, and then occasionally something for southern rust, but really needs something for all three, right? That's where it becomes a little more complicated, but here we go. So both of these are three-way premix fungicides. Both are very good for southern rust, both very good for northern corn leaf blight, and for gray leaf spot. There's not really a whole lot of difference between those two. I wouldn't select this one just over that because of being just very good. Both of them would be good. Well, what about the price? Let's take a look at those. Well, maybe the first one's a little less desirable than the second one from the return on investment. But here may be a case where you would look at these particular actives and say, well, maybe I'll switch that up from one year to another to be able to mitigate or reduce some of the fungicide resistance development. Okay, so that's how I would use those tables, the ROI calculator for fungicide selection. So I hope you found that as a simple example on selecting a fungicide. I'll point out that on the Crop Protection Network, there's a fungicide efficacy tool in addition to the tables. And so there's a lot of other crops to select from. And again, you can use that same sequence of selection that we went through for any disease within in those crops as well. So again, my name is Travis Foskey. I hope you found this presentation helpful, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.